This is a brief list of our milestones that we will be presenting on today, and we will just get straight into it.
We're missing the first zoning bylaw, which we will email Marta later because we feel like we need to do more research on that.
Okay, so in 1926, Vancouver and Point Grey both established planning commissions. This is before amalgamation, so they were two different municipalities. They were allowed to form planning commissions after the 1925 Town Planning Act. The commission's main job was to create city plans. The Bartholomew plan, which we'll be talking about later, actually was a result of this. And then the Vancouver Town Planning Commission that formed after the amalgamation, so it included what was previously Point Grey, South Vancouver, and Vancouver, served as the city's planning department until the 1950s. And then in the 1960s, it turned into a council advisory board, and it later became the planning commission that we are working with today. In 1928, the Bartholomew plan was published. Again, it was as a result of the Vancouver Town Planning Commission. They hired Harlan Bartholomew and Associates to create this plan for them. The plan was basically to help create efficient development for Vancouver. So it suggested a lot of roadways, neighborhoods, shopping districts, and where to place these all for an efficient city. It was never actually officially adopted, but a lot of things were taken from the plan later. So a lot of the arterial street system was suggested in this plan. Some public transit networks were suggested in this plan. Again, the placement of schools, parks, certain neighborhoods. In the downtown business court, Harlan Bartholomew suggested that was put down there, and also suggested the West End was built with apartments. And then in 1929, Point Grey, South Vancouver, and Vancouver all amalgamated into the city of Vancouver, which can be confusing. It kept the same name as one of the municipalities. But as you can see in this picture, it's a little blurry, but that's from the Bartholomew plan, and it outlines each neighborhood. And after this amalgamation, they became one, and it was in order to reduce the economic segregation between all the different municipalities and just to create a cohesive city. After amalgamation, it became the third largest city in Canada, and the boundaries and borders that were set from this amalgamation are what currently exists today.
Okay, so in 1929, the Great Depression hit Vancouver, and it really transformed the city. Vancouver was like a booming industry. There's lots of trade going on. It was a major shipping point. But this depression quickly caused the Vancouver economy to collapse. There was a lot of social unrest that was happening because of the depression. Lots of young men lost their jobs. Unemployment rate and homeless was on the rise, and many people had to set up, like shelters along the waterfront, which also really transformed the Vancouver landscape. Many young unemployed men also broke into many buildings in Vancouver and vandalized. For example, the Royal Theatre and the Woodward's building were either destroyed or vandalized. Many people went into department stores and stole things. There were many riots that happened. One of them was the Onto Ottawa truck, but I think the most significant thing that happened during this depression was many families had trouble paying for their mortgages, paying for mortgage. And as a result, the government allowed secondary suites. So this helped families pay their mortgages, and it didn't cause them to lose their house. In the later half of the decade, there were more constructions that appeared along West Broadway, Dunbar Street, Main Street. And Mayor Gregory also pushed for the construction of City Hall, which led to many investments that came into the city. The reason why he really pushed for it, even though many people were, why would you want to build a City Hall during the Depression? I think Mayor Gregory was saying, Vancouver is becoming a financial business city in the Pacific Rim. It has one of the largest ports in the world, and that's why they needed a permanent city hall. And also because due to amalgamation, the city needed more office space. So the Golden Jubilee celebration during the Depression in 1938, the celebration was to bring hope and pride to Vancouver during the Depression and during many economical struggles. This also led to Chinatown finally becoming incorporated to be part of the Vancouver City. Before Chinatown, it was very undervalued. People, Chinatown was obviously a very isolated area, but Queenie Yip, he wrote a report which was for the Golden Jubilee, and this report basically highlighted the rich Chinese culture. He talked a lot about the social life of the Chinese and how they contributed to the Vancouver society, and this really kind of brought to light the rich Chinese culture. And during the Golden Jubilee, when there was many tourists coming in, this kind of just, I guess, in a way, like showed off like the Chinese culture, and as a result, this led to the incorporation of Chinatown with the rest of the city. In 1938, the Lionsgate Bridge opens up North and West Vancouver. When there was a lot of debate whether or not the gate should be built, because the Parks Committee didn't think that a bridge should cut through Stanley Park. They should maintain the kind of like, they didn't want like city and automobiles going through the park. As a result, in 1927, the plebiscite was defeated, but in 1933, it was passed because many people were attracted to the economical opportunities that could result from the building of the bridge. And also, when they built the bridge, it opened up North and West Vancouver for real estate development. Many people were able to move to this area because they needed more areas for housing. And this also led to many debates regarding the freeway construction in Vancouver and in the Lower Mainland, because they wanted to alleviate traffic congestions, especially in the central business districts. So this then resulted in the Georgia Viaduct being approved in 1965. That runs to obviously Chinatown down the east side, which obviously caused a lot of anger and protests. And also there are many environmental concerns because of the freeway development. But today the Lionsgate Bridge is considered one of the significant heritage landmarks. So World War II changes Vancouver's landscape in 1939. The World War II helped kind of spur the Vancouver economy after it was in a slump during the Depression. This diverted a lot of the war effort a lot of the production for the war effort. So instead of constructing cars, many production was focused on constructing tanks and trucks and food for the soldiers. Because many people were arriving into Vancouver to work in the production industry for the war effort, this led to a lot of housing shortages for many families, and as a result, the Wartime Housing Limited Company built over 30,000 detached housing, not just in Vancouver, but across Canada, to provide affordable housing for wartime workers and also veterans. Another really important event that happened was the demolishment of the Japanese districts, which displaced many Japanese Canadians. Lots of the effects of what happened to Japantown's demolishment is also visible and very active today. There are a lot of gentrification that's happening around this area. There's many social housing that is developed and will be developed, and you can also see many large-scale commercial developments coming into what was previously where many Japanese people lived. So it is definitely changing the area of the Japan town.
So in 1948, the Fraser River flooded again, and this time it led to $20 million of damage back then, which is 10 times that today, and so the evacuation of 1,000 people. This led the authorities to realize that the region was not prepared for disasters like this, so they built dikes around the lower mainland in order to hopefully prevent future flooding. And it also led to the Fraser River Flood Control Program in 1968. They also, because of this, realized that they needed a regional board to handle issues that didn't pertain to just one municipality. The flood affected a lot of different municipalities, and it crossed boundaries, and there was no way for one city to deal with it by themselves, so they realized that they needed a regional board to do this, which led to, in 1949, the Lower Mainland Regional Planning Board was established. This is one of the first regional planning boards in Canada, and it mapped the floodplains and agricultural lands of the Lower Mainland to help establish the agricultural land reserves. And it functioned until 1969, when it was then actually dissolved into 4 different regional districts, which now serve today. And that is our presentation. Thank you for listening.
That was a blessing.